And now, GBNews can exclusively reveal that 7,000 migrants have now crossed the Channel in the last 8 weeks since the Labour Party came to power. This startling figure makes up a third of the total who've crossed so far this year. And this comes as a human rights group have criticised Spanish authorities for ramming a suspected migrant boat, as you can see on your screens here, off the coast of Morocco, where 4 people were rescued from the water. One of them was hospitalised, but nobody on that craft was seriously injured. And joining us now for the latest is GBNews' Home and Security Editor, Mark White. Mark, welcome to the show. So the grim tally of 7,000 has been surpassed. Let's first talk about that before we go on to perhaps more robust methods of using boats in the Channel. First, tell us about the total today.
Yes, just really within the last half hour, another Border Force vessel, the third of the day, arrived in Dover Harbour with migrants on board, 150 or so that have come across the English Channel today. And that took us to that milestone figure of 7,000 migrants who crossed the English Channel just in the 8 weeks since Labour came to power. And that, to put it in context, is a third of the total number who've crossed the English Channel since the beginning of the year. 20,500 we are now at in terms of those who have made that illegal crossing to the UK. And of course it follows the arrivals yesterday that you and I spoke about, Martin, with 615 people who crossed the Channel, and the day before that 525 crossed the Channel. What's the government saying in response to this? Well, they're saying that they are embarked on a process of trying to ensure that they can smash the gangs. They're recruiting 100 new investigators for the National Crime Agency to go after the people smugglers, and of course in the process as well of creating this new Border Security Command, which will be given new counter-terrorism powers to help them more robustly go after those people smugglers involved in this trade in human cargo, which is worth many millions of pounds.
And Mark White, we again spoke yesterday of the charm offensive that Sir Keir Starmer was on across continental Europe, speaking first to the German Premier and then again to the French President Macron about a more joined-up approach of stopping the gangs right back down the chain. But we keep saying, Mark White, it's slow and the gangs don't set to get the memo. And Mark White, that brings us on to the next talking point, and that's this extraordinary video that surfaced in the Mediterranean off the Moroccan and Spanish coast. Let's get that on the screen now, Mark, and talk us through what happened here. It's been called by the Spanish Socialist Party an intolerable human disaster, but it's important to point out that nobody was at all seriously injured in this. But Mark, tell us what's going on here.
Yes, well, I mean, clearly, evidently, it's not a human disaster in any way, shape or form. One person was slightly injured. You can see from the video there, this is just off a Spanish exclave, which is next to Morocco in North Africa. That Guardia Civil boat trying to stop the migrant boat, which has got a significant, powerful engine on it as well. At that point, it goes right over the top of the migrant boat with one person cast into the water at that point. So as far as the incident was concerned, you had the migrants on board that boat absolutely determined that they were not going to pull about, that they were not going to allow the Spanish police patrol boat to board them and to take them into custody. And that's why you saw this chase and the manoeuvring tactics of the Spanish, which, as you say, were robust, Martin.
And Mark White, this video has now been viewed millions of times, and it has to be said, a lot of people viewing it are saying, like, nobody is condoning ramming boats. And in fact, this looked like an accident. It looked like the migrant boat kind of turned into the larger craft and was kind of swamped in the heat of the moment, as it were. Nevertheless, Mark White, we hear all the time about turning boats back, about towing boats back to France in the English Channel, and time and again, Mark White, we're told this isn't permissible. Instead, we see more or less escorts ashore from both French and English-British vessels, Mark White. Is there any evidence of previous attempts to be more robust in the English Channel? Do you think, if so, that might have any leeway, any resonance with the current Labour government?
I don't think with the current Labour government, no, but you're absolutely right. Under the previous government, there were manoeuvres to be more robust with the small boat migrants coming across the English Channel. We can show you hopefully some more video that we filmed when we were down in Dover a couple of years back, and this was under Priti Patel, who was the Home Secretary, and we saw jet skis in action there as these border force vessels were on standby as well, and they had a mock-up of a small boat there, and the jet skis in operation, 3 of them there, all trying to manoeuvre the small boats. And this was the tactic that Priti Patel wanted to see Border Force adopt, to be much more robust, to send out this message that if you come across, they will herd you straight back towards France. However, the Home Office, the lawyers, the legal team in the Home Office looked at the tactics involved, and the advice that came back from them was that this would potentially land the Home Office and the Home Secretary in trouble, that it might not be legal. So Priti Patel backed off from that approach. She wanted to go down that road, but she listened to the advice of those legal teams at the Home Office, and we are where we are, with now Border Force effectively, and they hate you saying this, but effectively acting as a taxi service. When these migrant boats reach UK waters, they are picked up. It's as simple as that every day. And we've seen it again today with 150 people who've crossed the English Channel. 3 occasions they got into UK waters from 3 boats, and they were picked up by Border Force and taken to Dover. But there is some robust tactics still taking place out in the Channel. Martin, we can show you another bit of video recently that shows the Spanish involved in robustly dealing with a small boat out in the middle of the Channel as well. Or no, we can't bring you that.
We'll do it in the next hour, Mark White. We'll have plenty more nibbles at this story throughout the show. Thank you very much, Mark White. Now, less than 2 months after Sir Keir Starmer romped to a landslide election win, is the country waking up to the reality of life under a Labour government? Well, Sir Keir Starmer's regime is being plagued by allegations of cronyism, fears of a brutal October tax raid, axing the winter fuel allowance to fund a bumper union pay rise, a mounting illegal immigration crisis, and calls of 2-tiered policing. And today it has emerged that Starmer's personal popularity has plummeted to minus 16 points, his lowest score on record, and a drop of 27 points from his post-election high of plus 11. I think we saw pictures there of Sir Keir Starmer with President Macron enjoying his last tango in Paris before he returns home. So the question is this just early term blues, or is it a sign of a deeper dissatisfaction with the Starmer regime? And we're joined now by our GBNews political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, welcome to the show. Now, before we talk about Sir Keir Starmer, I understand you've just done an interview, just spoken with and been at a speech by the Conservative leader, hopeful Tom Tugendhat. Tell us more.
Yes, that's right. Good afternoon, Martin. I've just been at an event from Tom Tugendhat, one of the 6, hoping to become Conservative leader and leader of the opposition. Quite an interesting speech, basically based around public services, very wide-ranging. Of course, he's got a monumental job, A, to become leader, and B, to bring a very fractured Conservative Party back together if he does win it. But he did say something that particularly struck me, and it was about the numbers of legal migrants coming to this country. Let's just have a look at what he had to say.
The Conservative Party, under my leadership, will commit to a legally binding annual cap on non-British annual net migration of 100,000. We cannot sustain the hundreds of thousands it is today.
So he called legal migration the elephant in the room and the strain that it puts on public services. So here we go again, because of course the Tories spent years saying they'd get net migration down to the tens of thousands, and then it went up, to 750,000 at one point very recently. So I think it's fascinating that he is making that pledge that will obviously appeal to plenty of people who are very fed up with the Conservative Party, who may have gone to reform, etc. Of course, are people going to believe them given their record? And even if they can do that, then how are they going to get the workers for the care sector, for the NHS, etc.? So I asked him that. He did say it would be within 4 years of them coming to power, but he said, this low-wage economy and relying on foreign workers has got to stop. But of course, the Conservatives had 14 years to fix that, and they didn't do so, did they?
Yep, superb stuff, Catherine Forster. 100,000 net, as you say, that's significantly lower than 750,000 that it was last time round. Thank you very much. Let's move on now, speak to our next guest. Catherine, speak to you next time. And move on to the former Labour Party advisor, James Mathewson, who joins us now on the show. James, always a pleasure. So the latest figure there, 100,000 from Tom Tugendhat. Let's get back to Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. The grim tally of 7,000 illegal migrants over the Channel since the Labour Party came into power. And the popularity of Sir Keir Starmer has gone off a cliff, it's fair to be said, since that general election, down 27 points to -16. Cronyism allegations, perhaps a bumper tax raid in October, austerity that might make George Osborne blush in the NHS and in education. Winter fuel allowance is being plundered for pensioners while asylum seekers are being pampered. Two-tier policing allegations. Been a torrid time, James, for Sir Keir Starmer thus far. Are these popularity ratings early term blues or an indication of something more to come?
Well, before we come on to Keir Starmer, Martin, I don't think any asylum seeker has been pampered that I can see. I don't think that's the experience at all, so I have to challenge that off the bat. However, Keir Starmer's popularity rate, and you're absolutely right, it's taken a plummet, and I think it's to be expected. I mean, there's always going to be this situation, right? When you're on the outside and you're in opposition and you're shouting in, there's always going to be that chance to build your credibility, to build your portfolio of everything you can offer the country and everything you can stand for. And then when you're in power, you are suddenly responsible for everything that goes wrong. Things that aren't of your making, things that you've never dreamt would be a problem, events that seem to happen randomly. So, all of this can be attributed to that. I think it is early days yet. I think we will see, hopefully, the work that the Labour Party wants to do and that it committed to doing during the election being delivered, but it was never going to be delivered within a few weeks. But the last thing the Labour Party wants to be talking about is things that, frankly, it does not prioritise as serious issues that need to be dealt with right now. And a lot of the time, that's the thing. Talking about things like two-tier policing. That wasn't even a terminology during the election. So, to predict that you would be talking about something like that at this stage, that would be frustrating many people in the Labour Party camp.
James, it's also worth pointing out that there's been a shift in voter intentions. Again, it's very, very early terms in this term, but there's been a 6-point shift to the Reform Party and a 5% deficit from the Labour Party. This appears to be red wall seats buyers' regret. Do you think that's something that Sir Keir Starmer needs to be mindful of, particularly when we saw those riots happen in the 7 most socially depraved towns of England with the most asylum seekers? Is this working class problem something that Sir Keir Starmer needs to look in the eyes of?
Yeah, I think it's a question for all of us, to be honest, as a society, because communities, and this goes back to the Brexit question even more, which I hate talking about, but, it's all tied together. Communities like the one that I come from in the northeast of England have been left behind, for many, many years. I mean, let's be honest, the last 50 years, which government has really taken those communities seriously? The deindustrialization in those communities, things like pits closing, factories closing, that had a massive impact on the local communities and their economies. So there are problems there that are so deep that you cannot possibly solve by addressing them overnight. But hopefully, I would hope the Labour Party takes that seriously, because no other government seems to so far. So they do have a chance to look at this. But when it comes to addressing symptoms like concerns about immigration, concerns about two-tier policing, all of these things, they're a symptom of a much bigger problem for me. And that bigger problem has to be addressed over time.
OK, thanks for joining us. Always a pleasure. James Mathewson, thanks for coming on the show.